everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have such an exciting day planned for you all. I am Kamara Gray. I'm the Artistic Director of Artistry Youth Dance, and we have put together this fantastic Insight Day for you all. So again, just welcome and thank you for coming. Today is a really exciting day. It's an insight into actually our AYD 100 workshop, which some of you might have seen advertised, which is a week long of workshops where we have partnered with some of the leading vocational schools. We have London Studio Centre, Bird College, Arts Ed, the Erdang Academy and LMA. And then we also have fantastic sponsorship from Disney's The Lion King, who we'll be meeting first. And in our week-long workshop, you'll be doing workshops, dance workshops, musical theatre workshops, and a brilliant masterclass with David Blake from The Lion King, who we'll meet in a moment. And unfortunately, because of some of the restrictions, we had to put that on pause. We'll be postponing it to another day, but instead we're bringing you this fantastic day where you can meet the artist, meet the schools, learn about some of the brilliant scholarships that they have available, and ask any questions that you have. So get ready, get your questions ready. If things have come to your mind when you're thinking about them, then do just put them in the chat or write them in. So you might just want to also, just for your viewing pleasure, hide the thumbnail so you can see myself and David Blake, and we will get started. So before I'll do it in a second. Our first person up today is David Blake from The Lion King. Now, Disney's award-winning musical The Lion King explodes with glorious colours, stunning effects and enchanting music. It follows the powerful story of Simba as he journeys from wide-eyed cub to his destined role as King of the Pride Lands. Now in its 21st year at London's Lyceum Theatre, visionary director Julie Taymor's acclaimed reimagining of Disney's beloved film will redefine your expectation of theatre. Now, I've seen Lion King, I think maybe 10 times, you know, not like a groupie or anything like that, not in a weird way, guys, just because it's that fantastic. We have David Blake here, who plays Banzai. So what I want you to do, just first of all, if you could actually just unmute yourself and just give David a round of applause, a virtual round of applause. Let's welcome him into the space. Make some noise, guys. It's 10:30 a.m. Let's get the energy going up here online. I really hear you. Woo! Okay, that was something. That was something. Okay, great. David, welcome.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me? I know my volume is very low, but I'm going to do my best to speak out so you can actually hear me. So is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So again, Kamara, thank you so much for bringing me onto the platform today to talk about The Lion King. Guys, at the end of this session, I just want you to have like a deeper understanding of the work that we do, hopefully to extend your learning and get you to have a greater appreciation for the skills and the craft required to be a part of this spectacular show that we do 8 times a week. And again, stop me at any point in time to ask any questions, which I'll be very happy to answer for you. So Kamara, if I can, you want to start off or you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, if you could just tell us about yourself first, David.
All right. Well,
about your role and your experience.
Absolutely. So again, my name is David Blake. I was born in Jamaica. I moved here 15 years ago to be a part of The Lion King. I was living in America before I did that. But at the age, I should probably go back a bit. At the age of 10 is when I started performing arts school. My first job was when I was 11 years old. I got my very first commercial, and that was huge for me. I just couldn't imagine just being on TV and being in a newspaper and also being on a billboard on the island. I continued training. I joined a dance company. I also worked on a soap opera in Jamaica at age 18. And then when I moved to the States, I went to America to continue my training and studies at the university. While I was there, I was teaching, I was choreographing, and then I also got an opportunity to work on a film, which you might know very well, called Dreamgirls. So I was able to work with Beyonce, I was able to work with Jennifer Hudson, all those, Eddie Murphy, all of them. Just being in that entire space was just wonderful. And I mean, I just couldn't even imagine just standing like close to Beyonce like this and not freaking out or just not fanning out in any way. It was like, oh my God, I'm standing next to Beyonce. But I had to be professional I had to not, like, open my eyes too wide or smile too broad because I'd have brought attention to myself. So, fast forward, I came to London soon after that. I joined the Lion King, and actually, I probably should tell you how that happened. I literally went. I flew to Jamaica because Lion King travels all over the world for talent. They go to Brazil, they go to all these different Caribbean islands to look for talent. And the reason why they do that is because Garth Fagan, who's the choreographer for the Lion King, he's Jamaican. And so they went to all, and they're always trying to find like really talented people to be a part of the show. So went to Jamaica, did the audition, went back to LA, and was kind of like waiting. At the end of the year, I got a call to say that I got the job for the Lion King in London. So I was really, really excited to make that transition. So I came here. I came as a dancer first, and I was doing that for a number of years. It wasn't easy, very, very hard. But what I appreciated about being a part of that whole journey was the fact that they appreciated you for who you were, and they wanted the talents that you had in that space. I come from a varied background in my, especially my dance training. I'm exposed to like ballet, hip hop, African dance, modern dance, contemporary dance, ballet. All those elements is what actually got me an opportunity to be a part of this show, because throughout our audition process, right, through our audition process, you have to go through those kind of like strands of movement, and they want to be able to want to see if you're able to be adaptable and versatile. So change and adaptability is really, really important if you want to be a part of this show. And at some point, I'll get Esme to play a video for you that you can actually see that process, which we'll also talk about. So came, did the show, um, and there were opportunities that presented itself while I was in The Lion King. They have roles. So as a performer in the show, you're able to cover the different roles. I had my eye on Banzai, one of the hyenas. I really liked the way in which that character moved. I wanted to explore that in a more holistic way. I mean, it's very interesting. You have direct, indirect movements. You can be free, you can be heavy, you can be bound. There are just so many different ways of moving. I'm like a quadruped. So if you think of like a hyena, walking on all fours, I have, two legs in my arms representing legs, and of course my own legs, which represents the hind legs. And I was able to really explore, and because I'm a dancer, it was really, really interesting. I was able to do so many different tricks, cartwheels. I was able to do handstands, all those different things with the character. So, and then there was another opportunity that I saw as I got older. I saw Mufasa. Now, Mufasa is a loving, wise character who's teaching his son about balance, about the circle of life, which, by the way, I need to ask you, put up your hands. How many people have seen The Lion King? I meant to ask you that question. How many people have seen The Lion King? Do you think it's an amazing show? Yeah, right. So I connected with the story. So, going back to about Mufasa, he's very powerful, he's very spiritual. He has the responsibility of teaching Simba about balance and order. Every time that you see Mufasa on the stage, he's always trying to make everything around him better. And there was a point in my life where I was just really connecting with the character, and I wanted to explore that opportunity. I didn't know if it was going to happen or not, but I had a passion and I had a vision for myself. And I would have been the only dancer, perhaps in the history of The Lion King itself, to be playing or covering the Mufasa role, because that role is usually given to actors and singers in the show. And I was probably like one of the very first dancers to get that opportunity. As I auditioned, my first audition wasn't very good. It wasn't good at all. I messed up on the song. It was horrible, terrible, actually. But I kept working at it. And I came home in the nights after the show. I worked on the song, I worked on the script, until one day I was able to play the role. And the directors saw my passion, they saw my tenacity, my resilience, and they gave me an opportunity. And it's an opportunity that I treasured up until this day. So I was playing Banzai and I was playing Mufasa. So one night I will be, this quadruped walking around who's menacing, who's like a thug. And then another night I'm given the opportunity to be like a father, a leader. Yeah. Um,
Can I ask you just a question, David? Because you said you spoke about how your first audition was not fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit also about some of the different roles that you've played? Because Banzai and Mufasa, Banzai and Mufasa, fantastic roles, but I know that you didn't start there.
right. So again, as a dancer, I was the Birdman. So the Birdman is, they call it the bird soloist. The bird soloist in the show, if you as you've seen the show, so you see Circle of Life, there's this bird that comes up with the wings on his arms, and then he's wearing this like a headdress thing that has like different birds on top of it. So I was that person. Before they had made adjustments to the show, there used to be a ballet in Can You Feel the Love Tonight that I used to do with one other dancer. And that was really magical, really, really special. It was very scary as well because I had to carry her on my arm, on my hand. I had to walk onto the stage with her just balancing, actually, literally sitting on my hand. So I'd be walking on stage and then I have to throw up in the air and then I have to catch her. And that was the most terrifying thing I had to do because, I mean, it could just, it's nothing, it could just, anything could happen for her to kind of like fall flat on the floor. But with your training, with your focus and your commitment, you're able to do this every single night, and you want to do it every single night. That was a challenge because people say to me, are you doing the same thing all the time? I said, but that's a challenge. That's a challenge. Am I able to do it every night? And so I was challenging myself constantly to be able to do that. So I was doing that in the show, and as well as I continue to like do that role, there are other roles that you do in the show as well. You're like a dancing hyena, you're a wildebeest. Um, what else? In other roles that people perform, they're like grass. Yeah. I'm also have to manipulate the puppets on the show. We have like rod puppets that you have to like move around the show. You have shadow puppets as well, which is showing like carved out images of like Mufasa and Simba, which is done under light that you have to like manipulate um, on stage. You also have the buzzards, which is on like a pole that you have to also creatively um, execute in the show as well. So there are always just different moving parts and also different characters that you have to play in the show.
That's just so it's so versatile, and for anyone who hasn't seen the show, there are just so many things to see, especially in that opening scene. I think most people have probably at least seen the film, but many might not have seen the stage show, and there's just so much to watch, and the choreography happening. There's different things happening at the same time. So, can you tell us about Garth Fagan and his vision, please?
Right. So Garth had, what Garth wanted to do
Well,
was,
first of all, who is Garth?
okay, Garth Fagan, right. So Garth Fagan is a Jamaican choreographer who moved to America many, many years ago. And he started his own dance company in upstate New York called the Garth Fagan Dance Company. And he has that company, I think they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. And so he was brought in as a choreographer for The Lion King. And what he did, which was very clever, he really drew from various strands of dance: hip hop, modern, classical ballet, yes, and African dance. And I think he drew from all of those dance styles because it reflected his own training. Yeah. And what he wanted to do was to expand the consciousness of the youth, and showcase different dance styles. He wanted to show concert dance style as well as Broadway dance style all on stage so that anyone who came to the show, they'd be able to identify with. They'll be able to say, oh, that's hip hop. Oh, that's African. And I think it was a very clever thing to do because what you wanted people to do is to see the work that's being done and be inspired by it, to also see their own culture and things that they could relate to. And so I, as a dancer who had that similar background, I was inspired by that. I saw something that reflected who I was. And I was able to see even Afro-Caribbean dances as well, because Garth is from Jamaica. So I was able to see a lot of isolations, undulations, hip rolls, a lot of grounded movement that as a black person, I was able to identify with. And Garth was very, very clear as to how he wanted those movement styles to come together to create an idea that would be truly and uniquely Lion King.
That's really fantastic. So when we do the workshop, in the workshop thing, what kind of things can we expect from you? What will you be covering?
Well, I'll be covering a lot of the movement vocabulary and also a lot of character work as well. So we'll be looking at lioness chant. So for those who saw the lionesses dancing, they're fierce. They're also very feminine. Um, lionesses are the ones who are always on the hunt. They're the ones that bring the food to the pride. And so we'll be exploring the movement vocabulary in that as well. We'll also be looking at the hyenas. The hyenas, they're the ones that do the hip hop steps in the show. So a lot of isolations, a lot of ballistic movements that are short and that are quick. We'll be looking at that as well. We're looking at the confrontation dance where we have the hyenas and the lionesses kind of like fighting against each other. So we'll be able to come in that space and come up with ideas of how we can do how we can present that work. And then we'll also be looking at working as a community. So one of the things that we start off with in our rehearsal process is looking at grasslands, talking about the strength, the pride that we have as a community of Black artists being on that stage. I mean, it's such a beautiful scene to see in the show. And I want to that's one of the things I always do when I start a workshop is to try and pull people together, pull their energies together so that they can have a collective focus and they can feel as if they're as one body. It's very, very important because in a show as that we do with The Lion King, it's important that people understand that we're together and working towards a very specific goal. And that goal is to tell this amazing story of the Lion King. And it's important that we bring our heart, we bring our soul, and we develop a love for the work that we do.
Mm. I think I might have to join in with that workshop in the background there a little bit. And so, can you tell us just about the being a dancer? Well, you're a dancer, an actor, and a singer. What is it like on a day-to-day basis? What is that experience like?
Well, of course, we're in lockdown now, so it's very, very different. But outside of this space that we're in, you have to create a schedule for yourself in order to do this show. But even before that, you have to develop a discipline, right? That you have to live by. And that will constantly change depending on the needs and depending on where you are in your life. So on a day-to-day basis, I'd have to get up, I'd have to go to the gym. Sometimes I have to go to a voice class because I'm physically working on my body to make sure, but I'm also have to work on my vocal muscles as well to ensure that I'm able to do the show 8 times a week because it can be very, very hard. And there are times when you feel as if you can't do it, but because of that discipline that you've instilled in yourself, you're able to get through it on certain days when you don't feel as if you can get through it. Because of the work that you've been putting in over time, you somehow go really deep inside of yourself, deep, deep, deep inside of yourself, and you tell yourself you can do it because of the passion and the love that you have for it. But on a more practical level, you have to do your exercises. You have to take your dance classes, right? Because one of the things I realized that doing the show is that I had to learn intimately about my body. As dancers, we sometimes don't even know the anatomy of our body in detail. And we sometimes succumb to injuries because of that. We don't know, I remember at one point my thigh is hurting me. That's all I know, my thigh is hurting me. But why is your thigh hurting me? I don't know. So a lot of the times you find yourself not being able to articulate what's going on with your body. And so gives you an opportunity to really investigate various parts and various muscles that you don't use, because in a show as we do, you'll definitely use them, especially if you're doing it 8 times a week. When you're a concert dancer, you get a chance to do a show for a period of time and then you're able to rest. But in our show, you don't, depending on how long you are, sometimes you have 2 weeks off vacation or you have 5 weeks off vacation, depending on your time in the show. But if you're just starting off the show, you only have 2 weeks. So that's the only time you have to rest, right? And you don't want to necessarily be that performer, that artist who's always going off injured, always going off sick because you're not looking after your body. So it's important that as a dancer in the show, you're constantly like looking at your body, working on different things so that you can develop the strength, the resilience, and the tenacity that you need. So, you go through that whole process. Also, diet, eating the right foods. I had to start looking at everything that I was eating because I was that kind of person who would leave the show and at the end of the show, I'd always go home and eat all sorts of food because I was just so hungry and starving, right, from doing the show. But I had to start looking at that. What's my I don't eat chocolate, but I have other things that I might eat that could give me that same satisfaction. But I had to start looking at that because there's one point where I was eating so much and I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So when I'd go to the show, my costumes wasn't fitting because I was eating all that food. So I have to be very, very careful about the kinds of food that I'm eating because I need the kind of the energy, right, to ensure that I'm able to be sustainable in the work that I was doing. So you're looking at your diet. Also, mentorship is as well important throughout this process. Is speaking to somebody who understands what you're going through as a dancer, because doing 8 shows a week isn't easy, and you have to kind of remind yourselves. You have to kind of like set goals for yourselves in your life. And I want to share something with you really quickly. Let me just walk to it. And I want to talk about that at this point in the workshop, that setting goals is really, really important. And um, especially now that you're at home and you have the time to kind of like set goals for yourself, I created this vision board thing for myself. Yeah. I got this perforated, um, I got this perforated roll that I was able to stick onto my wall. So I wish I had done this when I started the show, for example. I had the goals in my mind, but I wish I had started something like this. So, for example, this could have been my health goals. This could have been my training goals. This could have been anything that you want for yourself. So, what I decided to do in this lockdown was to create like a plan for myself. So, this here is my financial plan. Yeah. Everything that I want to achieve financially. This here are my personal goals. I've created I call it my SMART goals. So they're like specific, measurable, you can't see it here, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. I haven't filled it out yet, but I've written out what I want to, how I'm going to actually write it out. Then I have my professional goals. Now that I'm not in the show at the moment, I'm writing out things that I want to do. Maybe I want to book commercials. I want to book commercials that pay over a certain amount. I want to book a TV show. I want to book a film. I want to create work for my teaching. I put that there. Then I have my spiritual goals that I've listed here. I've put things that I want to achieve spiritually. And then I'm the founder of Blake Arts, which is a performing arts um, school. I have the vision about growth and expansion. I have my social media vision. I want, to get more followers. Whatever it is that I wanted, I've put here. And then I've had affirmations. I have my mindset. I have my belief. I have my attitudes. I've created, like I call it my MBA. And then I came up with another word, which I think is quite popular. Everybody knows it's called swag, right? So swag, succeeding with a goal. And so I've created that here. And I'm just writing all the different things that I want to achieve, and just creative ways of being able to come up with things for myself for the future, because I think it's important that as artists we're constantly creating, we're constantly developing so that we can be our best selves. Kamara.
That's amazing. I know I never had those things when I was training, or I never thought to really write it out like that. So, how has that helped you in the show and get to where you are now? And especially in this period when we're in lockdown, how does having those things written out, how does that help you stay motivated?
Well, and thank you. That's a very good question, Kamara, because having those things will remind you of why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. Like when I started the show, I know I wanted to go back to school, right? I went back to school and I did my master's degree. I wanted that for myself. And so I had to write out those things. I don't have a printer at home, so I didn't get a chance to like take pictures and cut things out and put on the wall. I better just writing things out. So you may have to develop your own methodology of identifying what it is that you want to achieve. So I'm able to write that out. So if you're very clear about that, and on days where you're just really not, you're just demotivated and you just don't want to do it, have a look at those goals. Have a look at those things that you've written down for yourself to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, right? I wanted to play Banzai. I wanted to play Mufasa. And so it was in my mind, but had I done that, I'd have written out, I want to play this role. I want to get this role at this time. Um, how long I want to do it. I'd put all of those things on that sheet of paper to remind myself as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And in the show, I was able to, revise that for myself. But during lockdown, it has been such a help at the start of March, at the beginning of March, when we all were like locked into the house. I mean, what else was there to do? I had to start to reflect, to look inside myself and say, David, you are not going to somehow fade away and not have, not be able to do your passion and your love. You'd be able to, you know, I always tell people, I'm not trying to panic in a pandemic. I'm trying to stay very focused during this time. And so I was able to start, even though they may not appear realistic because of the circumstances that we're under, I was still putting it down there. Even though we didn't think we could leave the house, I was still putting a goal that probably would allow me to leave the house. Like, for example, I put that I want to work in a film. I put that at the beginning of March. So I technically was in a film, but I was in the film in a very different way. So I was the movement director for a film just on Friday for the BBC. I just never thought that would have been possible, but I wrote down that goal from March and I was able to achieve that. So I do believe that those things work. Yeah. I'm working on a project called Melanie Migration Brothers in Arms. We can talk about that another time, but that's a project that I created back in September. And I put down that I wanted to get funding for the project. And I got funding for the project. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sharing these thoughts and ideas with you. So whatever it is that you want to achieve, you have to be very clear and definite, right? About and very intentional about the things for yourself.
Yeah, they're really good tips for people, especially you guys watching. You know, you're at home a lot at the moment and you all have goals that you want to achieve, whether it's dance, musical theatre, or other things. So absolutely writing them down can make them come into fruition. Now, going back to The Lion King, you mentioned that you have a video. It would be great if we could have a look at that. Tell us a bit about, first of all, what's in the video,
So
first of
in,
all.
so in the video, you're going to see or one of our dance supervisors, Thea Barnes, kind of guide us, she's going to explain to you our process in The Lion King as dancers, showing us how she takes us through company class and how she investigates various movement ideas and vocabulary to keep the story fresh in our minds as dancers. But she had a clear and distinct formula for helping us as dancers to take ownership of the movement, to creatively problem solve any kind of issues that we face as dancers. But also, it became such a wonderful practice that we were able to apply to our own professional practices in our lives, both internally in the organization, externally as well. So you're going to see her kind of talk about that, and then I will be able to explore and expand on those ideas after the video. Thank you, Esme.
Level of excellence. And the only way to do that is constant dialogue, talking about the story, looking at it in different ways. And that's what rehearsals are used for. Our dancers, they have to be very good at doing short, ballistic, high-powered movement concepts that are distinctly Lion King. A gazelle doesn't exactly walk, especially if there's a predator after him, he jumps. Then we have the giraffes. They have to have an enormous amount of upper torso strength, core stability in order to walk like a giraffe. Then you look at their costumes, they have the puppets, and they have to be able to still jump high, cover a stage, which was, let's say, about 14 meters across. They still have to be able to fly. So the dancers have to have a very broad understanding of a number of different technical skills.
My name's Andy Todd.
Thank you. Hi, I am back. So yes, so I know that was a very short video and I know that you may not have seen everything very clearly, but Thea was very specific about her approach and very strategic in the way that she wanted us as dancers again to take ownership of the work. She would constantly bring material in, handouts. She would also bring videos in and show us other ideas about movement and how we should approach the movement. She was a person who kept us engaged in the process. So that company class that you saw there, we had it every week for 1 hour. We had 1 hour to investigate, deconstruct, and reconstruct movement ideas for the Lion King. And she would come up with creative steps and movements to do that. Yeah, to keep the dancers engaged, but to allow the dancers to tell that story every night. If you're a gazelle, she would talk about the fact that, as gazelles, you don't walk, you leap and you jump. And she'd also give us ideas about focus, being in that space, being in that time, talking about suspension, attenuation of movement, so that dancers can be very clear. Because sometimes you can get into the habit of just doing the same thing over and over. It becomes mechanical. And what she didn't want, and also the other creatives didn't want, is for the show to ever become mechanical, as if you're just walking off the street, coming home, taking off your jacket, going in the sofa. It should never ever be that. There are different ways of doing the same thing over and over creatively, and that's what she wanted to achieve with the Lion King. And it was something that was really, really good for me. And I was able to transfer a lot of those skills into my own practice, because I was both a teacher and a choreographer. So I would apply a lot of those principles and those methods, right, to the groups of young people like yourself that I was working with. So everything that I'll be learning at Lion King, I'll go into the classroom and teach my students, and also have my students tell me what they thought about the process of working in that way. And because it was always almost like a transfer of information, she would tell me, I would take it, I would then take it and pass it on to you, my students, so that you could develop your own practice. I was teaching at WAC Arts for a while, for the past 10 years, and it was a musical theater program. And the good thing about that process is that I was on stage Tuesday to Sunday, and every, was it Tuesday or Thursday, I'd be teaching at WAC. So I'll be teaching at WAC and then walking onto the stage. So they were able to see a person who was in a musical show come into their studio, teach them, and also pass on information about the process of being a part of a Western show. So that was always a plus and actually a positive thing for my students, because they're able to ask me questions about being on stage. They were asking me, and I would share that with them every time I taught the class.
So that's really brilliant. So it's really good that if people do have the chance to work with you or somebody from the show, to take advantage of those opportunities. Now, obviously, most people may not have the chance to work with you all the time regularly. So what is some of the training? What is some of the training that you would suggest people should do to prepare for a show like The Lion King? So what should everybody here be doing in their training to prepare for a show like The Lion King?
So guys, good question, Kumar. So guys, you know that you're all at home right now, right? You're all at home in your bedroom, chilling. Yeah. You could actually create a small program for yourselves. Start looking on YouTube, right? Start from a workout routine about building strength. How can you build strength for yourself, for your body? Start investigating your body. Start doing like a body map, right? Start almost like a body mapping of yourself, where you look at my arms. How do my arms move? Um, Looking at your torso, what's that like? You notice that Thea spoke about the various elements that dancers have to wear. For example, like the head. The head is the heaviest part of the body. It's like 11 to 15 pounds, right? And it sits on the most, I would say, very, very delicate part of the body, right on the vertebrae. So, not understanding how to hold your head, for example, um, for a costume can be dangerous. So it's about like investigating, how does my head move? How does my shoulders move? You can take this time out to kind of investigate that. For example, if you've been coming to Kamara's classes over a period of time, you can go back and look at all those exercises that she's taught you, right? Revisit all of that. Look at that and say, now that I'm not in the class with Kamara or with Heather doing classes, how can I now review that and see how I can improve? So when I get back into the studio, I'm able to be better and stronger. Yeah. And then also start working on looking at online at similar exercises to start training yourself. Looking at videos that talk about people being a part of shows, getting advice, getting writing down information about that. Because the thing is, many of us, when we started performing arts, we didn't have that. We kind of just got into it because it was fun. It was something to do. We felt as if we naturally did it, but we didn't have a chance to really investigate, to find out, to write information down. Nobody really did that back in the day. No one did that. Now you people, you young people, have access to that. You can actually type in online what how to be a performer. What do I need to be a performer? Yeah, you can type in all that information and get things for yourself to actually help you to improve your craft. So that is one of the things that you have, the advantage that you have as artists, is to be able to do that. And it's not going to be the same for Monet. It's not going to be the same for Camilla or Leslie. You, all of you, are going to approach that very, very differently because you're all different people. You know, Camilla, you may have an interest in singing. Amelia, you may have an interest in acting. Amari, same thing. Sienna, Georgina, Sarah, Ariana, you all will have a different approach to that. But it's about taking the time now to figure that out for yourself. So when we do come back into that creative space, you're very clear as to what it is that you want to do, right? So start writing, follow what I'm doing. Get that sheet of paper and start writing out those goals about what it is. And then each week, each actually, I would say every day, Monday to Friday, while you're doing your schooling in the mornings or at break time, take half an hour for yourself to kind of like revisit your goals and then come up with a plan as to how you're going to achieve that. Now that you can't leave the house, you can go into, I'm not sure of your space, but just, decide what it is that I want to start working on my voice. Find out like singing classes um, on YouTube. All of them may not necessarily be good, but if you know someone who can point you in a direction, like email Kamara and say, Kamara, I'm at home and I want to start working on my voice. Could you suggest someone that I can speak to give me some exercises that I can work on? If someone wants to contact me about movement, they can say, what kind of some exercises or class I can do online as well. Also type in free online classes, because some people from my friends from Alvin Ailey are teaching classes online for free. You can tap into that, and they're willing to offer advice, free advice at the end of all these sessions, even if you message them. What if you've talked to someone here on this platform that you are somehow inspired by? Connect with them on Instagram and ask them questions about how to get in, how to do what 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 is needed. The reason why I was able to do that film on Friday was because I contacted the director some 10 years ago because I saw their work, and because they were able to kind of like follow my journey as an artist because of that one email. They brought me in specifically because I was Jamaican, and they wanted someone Jamaican to work in this particular moment in the film because it spoke to a specific cultural reference. And they said, ha, I know someone, let me call him. And I was able to come in to do that. So making connections is really, really important, right? Because through those connections, you can develop mentorship, because mentorship is really, really important.
Yeah, that's really good advice for anyone wanting to go into the industry. And you mentioned strength training. Once we are back in the studio, are there any particular styles that people should be include in their training if they wanted to get into a show like The Lion King?
Absolutely. Everything possible, all different styles of training. And the reason why I always say different styles of training is because when you go to a party, right? A birthday, you go to a birthday party, guys. You go to a birthday party, you hear salsa, you start doing salsa. If you hear hip hop, you start doing hip hop. If you hear Afrobeat, you start doing Afrobeat. You just naturally do those things. So why is it that as dancers or as artists, we want to just focus on one thing? We want to focus on more than one thing because our body naturally moves that way. Sometimes when we focus on one particular art form, it actually limits us. So take, for example, and nothing's wrong with, I'm using an example, okay? So take, for example, you have a ballet dancer. Sometimes a ballet dancer is only able to move in one way. I was teaching some ballet students the other day, and I was saying, oh, do a fan kick. And then I had to remind myself that I'm teaching ballet students, so they may not understand what a fan kick is. You have to say, "Oh, do a big grand rond de jambe," and they're like, "Oh," because of how they're trained. So I'm not saying, for example, that that training is not important. It is important because you're able to understand line, shape, and form, right? But then there are other things as well that the body will always, be willing to adapt to, because that's what we are. So I would say start doing different dance styles, explore African, explore hip hop, explore modern, explore classical. So when you look at the show in terms of the shapes, modern dance is a big, it's a major style that's used within the show because of the lines and the shapes that are done. So where can you access these classes? Of course, Kamara has classes like that available. And sometimes you need to go to Kamara and say, Kamara, I saw this flamenco dance. Can we bring someone who does flamenco? Because I think it's interesting. And if you're able to convince and tell Kamara as to why you think they should have come, she might be willing to do that. But the why is always important, right? That's why I said this is a time for you all to investigate what it is that you want to do and what it is that you want to explore, because you want to be that versatile and adaptable dancer to be able to explore any kind of professional space. Yeah. So I would say do as many dance styles as you possibly can, right? Because also it informs your body. You want to have the physical vocabulary that you can use and apply in any arena, on any international stage. And just don't always think London. Think, I want to go to America. I want to go to Africa. I want to go to the Caribbean. Think broad. Don't think just doing Lion King, because guess what? You may be able to do Lion King in another country. How about that? Do you know what I mean? You want to be able to think outside of the four walls that we are in right now. We have to reimagine what's that going to be like for ourselves.
Thank you, David. So I'm going to bring some questions. We've got some questions from our participants here today. First, Ariana, if you want to put on your microphone and ask your question to David.
Hi. My question is, what was the audition process like? How many, like, for example, like how many rounds did you do, and what did the rounds consist of?
Okay, so Ariana, in terms of getting into the show, that was probably probably I would say the best part of coming to the show, because I didn't audition in London, but if I auditioned in London, I'd have probably done probably like 4 or 6 rounds to get into the show. But because I was in another country and they were like jumping from country to country, I was able to just do two, which was just the first audition and then just the callback. But in the show, as playing the Banzai role or the Mufasa role, I probably auditioned maybe 4 times in order to get the role. So you audition, they bring you in, then they say, oh, no. Then you come back in, they say, oh, no. You come back in, they say, oh, no. Then you come back in, they said, yes, you're ready, right? So it just depends on who, it depends on what it's that you're going for, and it depends also on who is doing the audition process. But I was saying, to get in the show initially, you could go through as many as maybe 4 or 5 rounds, depending on what you're getting into. If you want to be a singer, it may be 4 or 5 rounds. If you're doing a part, because it just depends on the time as well. Because what if Ariana decide to go for a Shenzi, for example, and someone else with the same ability, the same skill that you have, is also in the room, and they have to now decide, who are we going to choose? What can Ariana bring? What can, for example, let's use Lauren. What if Lauren and Ariana were going up for the same role, for Shenzi, for example? They have to make it's a very hard decision. That's why I'm always telling people to always investigate about themselves and be unique and be themselves in an audition space, because that's what usually gets you to the next level. So, but you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for the rejection, or you have to be prepared to go through a series of rounds to pull more and more from you, to be able to get the gig. You have to understand that there's someone else that's going for it as well, and it's just as passionate as you are. So so you have to almost like to think that I can't give up, because I know it's within me. If you want it hard enough, Ariana, you have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to go through the process and not giving up. But be prepared. You could go in there for like 10 rounds, Ariana. And the idea is how many times, and I'm not saying it is right, and I'm also not saying it's wrong, but every director, every producer has their own process and their own methodology of pulling things out of an artist. Because imagine, Ariana, that you have to do the show 8 times a week. Are you going to somehow fall apart after doing it 4 times? So in a way, it's a preparation for you to enter the show. So just imagine that this is what it would be like. Maybe not as intense because there are nerves and there's anxiety that's going through the audition process, but imagine that. So I would probably kind of like think in my mind. I know it's a lot of times that I'm doing the audition or coming into the space to do this, but imagine that if this was a show, I'd have to do it 8 times. So let me just take the audition process out of my mind and think creatively and imagine that every time they call me in, I'm doing a show, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's like to reimagine the moment. Because then, if you think of it as an audition every time, you're not going to go in there open. You're not going to go in there with a positive attitude. You're going to go in there being bound and being heavy and sometimes being angry. Because I have friends who would say, "Oh my God, I'm tired of coming in for this audition. I've had enough." And but if you want it badly enough, you'd begin to reimagine and just alter your mind as to your process. Yeah.
Thank
Um,
you.
anyone else?
Great. So I'm going to ask Trevena. I know you have a question for David.
Hi, Serena.
Hi. I was just wondering, in regards to like being a lioness,
Mhm.
is it required to have some sort of point work or anything like that?
Yeah, so point work is good to have because sometimes in the audition they said, "Does anyone know point?" And there's a reason why, because in the show, one of the dancers has to go across the stage on point. So it's good to be able to have that. And also, if you're a dancer, depending on the kind of dancer you want to be, because not everyone has to do this, but if you're a dancer and you have the opportunity to be exposed to point work on it because you never know you're going to be called upon. Because in the audition, when the women have gone through the the audition process, they've gone through all the vocabulary from the show. At the end of that audition, they'll say to them, "Can anyone go on point?" So Ariana, if Trevena, if you have done point, you go, "I've done point," and they say, "Okay, can you put your point shoes on?" And they'll just give you something to see, how well you are trained on point. So, as I was saying earlier, it's important to explore all different dance styles so you have a knowledge of it. So to answer your question, yes. So being a not necessarily being a lioness specifically, but being a dancer, I would say, is good to know point work.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Wonderful. Isabel, you had a question for David.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so what's your relationship like with the other dancers? Is it still very competitive once you get into the show, or what's it like?
Oh, that's such a really, really good question. So, you saw in that video that we showed you earlier with all the dancers in the space, we are a wonderful family. I mean, I got the benefit of working with them in a very holistic way because at the end of class, I would always call them in and say, guys, can you just say an extra 10 minutes? I want to work on this movement vocabulary or I want to work on this exercise. All of them are so willing to help. We never had time to really compete against each other because were always working as an ensemble. What we would do is to use that energy to challenge us to be better. So not necessarily compete against each other, but to be better, to learn from each other because everyone was coming with different skills. Everyone was coming from different cultural backgrounds. So we had an opportunity to learn from each other and be inspired by them. So in terms of being competitive, no, we never really had the time to do that because we're always doing things together. So if you have the hyenas, for example, as a male dancer, the hyenas have to look as one body. So if you're trying to compete, the energy would shift. Yeah, the energy wouldn't shift. You have to be open, you have to be vulnerable, and you have to be loving in that space. Yeah.
Thank you for that, David. So I have a question from Shay. She says, "What do you look for in a dancer?"
What I look for in a dancer
Well,
is
I think that's probably what the Lion King looks for in a dancer for the audition process.
right. So for the audition process, the Lion King looks for dancers who are open, who have personality. Yes, they want a skilled dancer to come into the space, but they want someone who's adaptable, someone who's versatile, who's willing to put in the work. Because in the actual audition process, you're going to be guided through a series of movement vocabulary. And I remember when I was doing my audition many years ago, I just somehow kept doing my foot like in the wrong way. I don't know. Every time I came out on the floor to do the step, I was like, I told you that that was not it. I told you that that was not it. And she said to me, if you do it one more time like that, I'm like, oh my God, why can't I get this right? So you want to be able to be adaptable and versatile in this space. They want someone who's disciplined. They want someone who's committed. They want someone who's passionate. Yeah. And someone who is able to get on with everyone else in the building because we're with each other, you know, oh my God, 8 times a week. But then outside of the 8 shows that we have a rehearsal process. So imagine that you're being around these people all the time. You have to be open. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to work with each other. So they want, all of those things in that space, all of those things in that dancer.
Yeah, that's important to know. So we have time for like 1 or 2 more questions. Does anyone have any questions? You can just put your hand up and I will come to you. Anything you want to know about what David said about the audition process, about how to stay motivated in this time, what it's like being in the show. Do not be shy, guys. We're all friends here. So I have Amari.
Hey, Amari.
Hi, David. I just wanted to ask what would you say is the most challenging part about working in Lion King?
Um, one of the things, Amari, I would say to you is sometimes not having a social life because we work unsociable hours. I mean, we get off at work at 11 o'clock. And if you have friends outside of the industry, you can't really connect with them. And, you get up in the morning, they're gone to work. On Sundays, you finish work at 5. Everybody's pretty much having dinner to then go to get ready to go to work the next day. So I would say that's one of the challenges that I have, not being able to connect with my friends. And also because I wasn't born here, I don't really have a wide network of friends. A lot of my friends came from the show and also from the work that I do, with my students and stuff. But in terms of, being able to connect with people who work on a 9 to 5, that has always been a challenge for me. And not being from here as well, like missing my family, missing my friends. That's one of the things that I sometimes struggle with because you get into the routine of just doing the show only and being able to do things outside, but not in the same way that you would have doing a 9 to 5 job. But it's a huge sacrifice, and that's something that you have to really think about. Are you willing to give that up to follow your dreams and follow your passion? But the idea is, as I said to you about the goal setting, Amari, is to be able to say, at a certain point in my career, I want to be able to get to a point where I may not have to be at show 8 times a week, but I can do the work that I love doing. Yeah, I can do it in the same way I'm doing 8 shows a week, but not at those times. So if that's a clear goal for yourself, you can write that down, because if that's a struggle where you feel as if you're not seeing your family and not connected, you have to make a decision as to, is this right for me or not? That's one of the things. And when I made this leap of faith to come to London, I was leaving a lot of things behind, but I wanted a fresh start. I wanted a new beginning for myself. So you have to take the time out to think about, is this profession right for me? Because it's going to require a lot of sacrifice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. And I think somebody else had their hand up, but it's gone now. Is there one final question? No, that's it. So you guys are just sitting, listening, enjoying the information. So hopefully, well, not hopefully, I just want to take this time to thank you, David. The information was so useful. You covered so many things and really gave us an insight. And just a reminder to everybody that when we do the workshop week, David will be leading a masterclass where he will be going through the movement from the show, and you'll be getting learning choreography from the show and embodying the characters in that workshop. I just want you to all just put on your microphone, so unmute yourself, please. Can we please get a massive round of applause? Make sure your screens are on. I want cheers, I want whoops, I want colors. Put in the comments. Guys, don't be shy here. This is not a shy place. I need loud. I can't really hear much. Maybe I'm getting old. I'm getting a bit deaf. I don't know. But yeah, give me some noise, guys. Make some noise for David Blake. Please put in the chat your thoughts on the talk. What you took from the talk. Just David, really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. It's been insightful. I've learned more about the show, even though I've seen it 10 times and I'm a massive groupie. Sometimes I do hang out backstage as well. You know, what can I say? I love it. Yeah, how can people learn more about you, please?
Yes, I'm typing in the chat now my Instagram page, and I'm also sending my email. That if you have any questions, you can ask me, or just go through Kamara. Go through Kamara, and she can put you in contact with me. And I'm hoping at some point I can come in to work with you guys in the actual studio space, that we can actually have direct interaction. Hopefully, when all of this is over, we can do that. But thank you guys so much. I mean, one of the things I want to definitely start doing is writing down those goals. Yeah, you may not have to do it in the way that I've showed you today, but begin to set clear goals for yourself, your personal, your financial, yeah, your spiritual, your artistic goals. I want you to start developing that right now, because that will help you moving forward as you come out of this AYD course that Kamar has presented. You should be clear as to what it is that you want to achieve for yourself. You should be clear as to what dance styles you want to explore. You should be clear about what schools here in London, so that when you go into these schools, you're clear about what you have. So when you speak to your teachers, when you speak to your mentors, you can say, I want to do this, I want to do that, right? And ask for support to do that. Don't be afraid to do that, and understand that there are people in the industry that are willing to mentor you. So as you speak to each and every person on this program, identify a person who can connect. Oh.
Sorry.
Identify someone that you connect with that can guide you, because one of the things that you need as artists, because Kamara has doing an amazing job of guiding all of her artists at Artistry Youth. So I want you to do the same for yourself, okay? To identify someone, speak to Kamara and say, Kamara, I've heard this person speak in the masterclass today. How can I get in touch with them, because I want to be able to do what they're doing? I want them to help me to get to the next level in my career. So don't be afraid to do that, okay? That's one of the things that I want you to do when you step away from this platform. So thank you again for having me, right? Have a wonderful weekend, and keep that passion alive for the arts. We're in this lockdown, but we're not going to stay there. We're actually going through this. Think of it like a wilderness, okay? You never sit in the wilderness, you go through the wilderness. So thank you again for having me, and I will see you all soon.